On March 1995, the world was introduced to the blonde, buff, womanizing Casanova wannabe known as Johnny Bravo, as he made his debut on Cartoon Network and Hanna-Barbera's animation showcase World Premiere Toons.
I'm Johnny Bravo, the one-man army.
Ooh, that Johnny Bravo is dreamy. He's one of the new tunes that everybody's talking about. World premiere tunes with a new tune star every week.
Created by young LMU graduate Van Partible, it aired as the fifth short, aptly titled Johnny Bravo. It featured a dim-witted 20-something-year-old man trying to impress a zookeeper by trying to find her escaped gorilla. Not too much to say about this one, but it's serviceable with some memorable gags. It'll be followed up by another short, Johnny Bravo and the Amazon Woman. This is probably my favorite of the two shorts, with much funnier jokes as side characters, especially Christopher, a flamboyant elephant guard on the island stopping Johnny from entering, played by the late David Lander. And it ends on one of my favorite jokes in the entire series. The shorts were very popular, with the first one even named Tune of the Year in a poll of Cartoon Network viewers. This paved the way for Johnny's own half-hour series. Debuting in 1997, Johnny Bravo was the second of the Cartoon Network's Cartoon Cartoons line and Hanna-Barbera's first series made after the Turner-Time Warner merger. The plot is simple. Johnny would get into strange and bizarre situations, usually involve meeting or picking up chicks. In the new show, he's joined by his kind and gentle mother, Bunny Bravo, and his next-door neighbor, a little girl named Susie. The show is really funny, mostly due to its moronic but likable protagonist, who you love seeing get in and out of trouble, clever writing, and memorable side characters. There are also fun special appearances from the likes of Donny Osmond, Adam West, Mark Hamill, and many others. One of the more famous episodes is a crossover with Scooby-Doo titled Bravo Dooby-Doo, where Johnny enlists the help of Scooby and the gang to find his Aunt Jebediah. I love the gags of Johnny hitting on Daphne, the reusing of old animation walk and run cycles for the gang, the unmasking scene with a nice shout out to Joe Barbera, and a song reminiscent of the Scooby-Doo chase songs is one hell of a bop. Other episodes had Johnny trying to escape from a bear obsessed with time, taking over as Santa Claus, going on a date with a deer, etc. The great thing about Johnny was, the character was so versatile he could be put in any situation. This season is also more well known for its adult humor.
No one was really watching Cartoon Network. I mean, honestly, the people at Cartoon Network couldn't watch Cartoon Network because it wasn't carried on all the cable stations. So, as far as content, they're pretty lenient on all the kind of things that were going on.
After all, you've got a show about a guy chasing women constantly. What's the end result of that? We're never going to know, obviously. But yeah, we didn't worry about it too much, let's put it that way. But if we ever crossed that line back then, the network would definitely tell us.
The show would launch the careers of writers and storyboard artists such as Steve Marmol, Butch Hartman, and Seth MacFarlane, who would go on to be big names in their own right. And one of the early roles of child actress Mae Whitman, voice of Little Susie, who would go on to star in acclaimed titles like Arrested Development, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Scott Pilgrim, Good Girls, and The Owl House. Johnny Bravo was a modest success in his first season. Kids and adults loved it, and Johnny immediately became part of the CN family, appearing in commercials and promos.
Hey, look at me, mamacitas! Are you sure this is safe? Is this speed legal? Let me out of this thing! Whoa!
There were very little merchandise of the show, understandably. I mean, how would you market a cartoon about a guy trying to get laid to kids? But I do remember some stories in a DC Comics Cartoon Network line. Johnny was one of the CN characters to get his own belly washer fruit drink, and there were also Wendy's toys.
Look out, kids. There's a new hunk in town. It's Johnny Bravo toys at Wendy's. They strike hard. They strike fast. And they almost always strike out. Oh, man. Now one Johnny Bravo toy in every Wendy's Kids Meal purchase, you can collect all 5.
Sadly, by the end of the first season, Van Partible was let go from the show, allegedly due to his lack of experience and management. Not to mention Warner Brothers' takeover of Hanna-Barbera, Van Partible and Seth MacFarlane were actually working on ideas for a second season, but those plans were scrapped as they were replaced by a new crew from Warner Brothers Animation, who had just wrapped up the Pinky and the Brain series, led by Gary Hartle and Kurt Tingblad, and Seth and Butch would go on to make their own series. I never asked Van how he felt about the retool seasons, but I imagine he had some resentment towards them, which I wouldn't blame him. Johnny Bravo is his baby after all. I also noticed he has no issues with Hartle and Tingblad, so pretty much across the board, I think they all knew it was a studio's decision, through and through. The second season of the Retool show debuted on Cartoon Network July 1999 on a then new programming block, Cartoon Fridays, with the third season following on August 2000, with a more redesigned, sharper look and new characters such as Carl, a local geek who annoys Johnny, and Pops, the shady owner of Pop's Diner. In addition, Mama and Susie were given more livelier personalities as opposed to how one note they were in the first season. And Johnny is a lot dumber than he was initially, but it did make for some funny jokes. I remember when the season first aired, I didn't like it very much. I was 6 years old and obviously not accepting of change, but I warmed up to it pretty quickly, and I did like these new characters. Johnny Bravo was always a funny show, but I feel like the Retool seasons really had much sharper writing and humor. I remember the Retool show had a lot more parodies, from Star Wars, Titanic, Frankenstein, a parody of action star and laughingstock Steven Seagal. There's even an episode where Johnny watches a spoof of Dragon Ball Z, which was in peak popularity at the time in the US on CN's Toonami, which makes the infamous clip in JBVO more funny in hindsight.
Okay, now back on Earth, those Namex dudes are recuperating. There's that guru guy. Oh, yeah. Looks like bad news. Okay, wow. They're bumming, huh?
I remember during this time, Johnny was probably more popular than he'd ever been. Of course, the spin-off JBVO was launched in 2000. There were several marathons. He also hosted Cartoon Fridays and a fancy Anvil Award show.
You know, we're all sorry Josie couldn't be here tonight. Those of us who've seen her movie understand why. Hey, at least she's got 8 more lives, you know? Somewhere there's a moose and squirrel wishing they could say the same thing.
The Rock himself at one point wanted to play Johnny in a live-action movie. Remember that, because that will be important later. Also, the designs in the Harold Tingblad era will be used the most in merchandise and promotional material, phasing out the original particle designs. A similar situation happened with Dexter's Lab, where the designs from season 3 and 4 will be used ad nauseum, to the point where I almost did a double take when the season 2 designs of Dexter and Dee Dee appeared in that Teen Titans Go Warner Bros. Special last year. Before we continue, if you like this or any of my other videos, I would ask you to consider supporting me on Patreon, where every dollar goes into production, like software expenses, and getting these out on a regular basis. You get early access, a special credit, a look behind the scenes, video shoutouts, question priorities. You can even request a Hanna-Barbera or Tom and Jerry special for the Funtastic Legacy of Hanna-Barbera minisodes, which could be anything from this list. You could also donate to me on Ko-fi, and liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, and clicking the bell icon helps a great deal as well. Thank you all so much for your support, and now, back to the show.
And now, back to Johnny Bravo.
As the Retool season wrapped up production, Cartoon Network heads Linda Semensky and Khaki Jones recruited Van, who was pitching ideas at the time, to see what else he could bring to Johnny Bravo. The result was the 2001 Christmas special, A Johnny Bravo Christmas, where Johnny forgets to mail his and his mama's letter to Santa. I love this special and I watch it every year. The special would bring back many elements for the first season. Notably, the art style is an interesting mixture of the original and the Retool seasons, with redesigns by legends such as Vaughn Tata, Julian Chaney, and Dan Haskett. Lou Ferguson even comes back to do the score, which is a welcome return. Donny Osmond makes his return in the special and a 2003 Valentine's Day special. There's even a joke in the latter about the talk show hosted by him and his sister Marie at the time. Also in the Valentine's special, Heather Aspen is a fun character, and it's great to see Johnny finally happy and find his equal, and the love song is generally a nice tune. Something I noticed when revisiting it as an adult, how depressing the ending is. Now let's get back to the proposed film. The interest The Rock, WB, and CN had in this movie gave Partible an idea.
And so, when that happened, I went back to the Cartoon Network and I said, hey, if we're going to be doing this movie, we should have some Johnny Bravo cartoons to like coincide and develop and do that. And so we can air these cartoons at the same time the movie comes out. Wouldn't that be awesome? They're like, yes, that would be awesome. That would be great synergy. And so they greenlit another season of Johnny Bravo that I got to produce. So.
Now, as we all know, the movie ended up not happening. I can only assume the failure of the Powerpuff Girls movie made them reconsider, but we did get the 4th season, headed by creator Van Partible and made at the then new Cartoon Network Studios, to air in winter 2004. This season I remember being a mixed bag. Much like Dexter and Powerpuff Girls, viewership declined during this final season, and after the series finale aired in August, these episodes rarely got any play during the rerun circuit. In fact, I don't think I'd seen the whole season until they aired on Boomerang in 2009. I might have recorded an episode or two on a VHS when it originally aired. Now I'm not going to talk about every episode, just the ones I feel are worth discussing. First, let's talk about the season opener, Johnny Bravo Goes Hollywood. After Johnny strikes out with another girl, he randomly gets approached by a Hollywood producer who cast him in a movie he's making. He travels to Hollywood where his co-stars are apparently guest stars Jessica Biel, Alec Baldwin, Don Knotts, a Hobbit, and Cheezosaurus Rex, I don't know. They do their shtick that goes on a little too long while Johnny and the audience watch confused. According to Van, the original idea was for Johnny to go to Hollywood and meet several Hanna-Barbera characters. Janet Waldo got to record several lines as Judy Jetson, with a funny reference about being replaced by Tiffany in Jetsons the movie. I kinda wish they went with this instead, but I'm pretty sure it only would have appealed to just me. No other 10 or 11-year-old in 2004 would have given a shit about Judy Jetson or Yogi Bear, sadly. And that's another thing. Van is a huge Hanna-Barbera fan. When making the first season, he got the help of legendary HB artists like Jerry Eisenberg and Ed Benedict. Even Joseph Barbera was a creative consultant. The art style in the first and fourth season pays homage to the classic HB style, especially in the designs of the background characters. Where in the Retool season, there isn't an ounce of HB DNA to be seen. In this season, he continued the trend of having classic Hanna-Barbera characters cameo in the cartoons. Billy and Mandy was the last show to do so. Though by this point, Hanna-Barbera was long gone, and CN had to pay Warner a licensing fee for cameos. Jabberjaw, Snuffles from Quickdraw McGraw, and Black Widow from Space Ghost all make appearances this season. Scooby-Doo even gets a mention in one episode. There's other major HB characters that make an appearance, but we'll talk about it when we get to it. Speaking of guest stars, Tia Carrere makes several appearances during the season. In Johnny Bravo Goes Hollywood, she stars in a parody of her late 90s TV show, Relic Hunter. Also, I think it's pretty cool that Van, who is Filipino himself, was able to get so many Filipino talent. Dante Basco voiced one of the guys hitting out Jenny in Which Away Woman, and Leah Salonga voiced one of the Greek chorus girls, parodying of Little Shop of Horrors in Time of My Life. Also, you might have noticed the adult humor the series is known for is completely absent this season, more geared towards kids as opposed to families. Traffic Trouble sees the return of the sensitive male from season 1. As he teaches the traffic school course Johnny has to attend. It's also a musical episode. Yeah, this season loves its musical numbers. My feelings on this season aside, it's really good to see these old favorites again, even if they are in a meh episode. Seth MacFarlane returns as a guest star, voicing the bird construction worker in A Fantasy and a magician. This season was in production around the time Family Guy was cancelled. It was slowly gaining popularity on Adult Swim, while Seth was doing some freelance writing on the Fox show The Pits. I wish he did freelance work for this season cause they really could have used him in the writer's room. One of the new writers was Hey Honor creator, Craig Bartlett. He joined around the time his show was wrapping up at Nick, and he was working on his pilot for CN called Party Wagon. Carl makes his return in the episode My Funny Looking Friend. A running gag throughout the season is, whenever he makes a cameo, he ends up hurt or some other kind of misfortune. Though I wonder if Van had a part of this gag. Though he fared much better than Pops, who makes a cameo in the last episode and doesn't even get a line. The episode everyone remembers is Which Away Women, where a gypsy turns Johnny into a woman, Jenny Bravo, who does have a nice design, and Greta Loud does a fantastic job as a female Johnny, to teach him what women go through. This episode has a good message with the girls are smart sequence, and I get what they're going for, but you know this lesson isn't going to stick with Johnny by the next episode. Home Alone is one episode that makes you realize how much the pacing is off in this season. But I guess that is the issue of making the episodes longer and abandoning the 3 shorts format of the previous seasons. The plot is about Mama leaving for vacation, and while Johnny is home alone, everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And by the end, the house is filled with fairy tale creatures, and you sit there wondering how we even got here. You can skip this one. Some episodes were holdovers from the second season Van is set for working on, like Back from the Future, where Johnny gets mistaken for a time travel by a bunch of sci-fi geeks. And it's another episode where the characters do shtick while Johnny just stands around in the background. Another dull episode, but there's a really funny ending where Johnny gets catapulted into a Civil War reenactment. That's Entertainment features the final appearance for Donny Osmond, as the gang tells stories when the TV is out. The one that stands out is the Disney parody, with designs by the legendary Dan Haskett. Get Shovelized has Johnny ordering a workout device, and it turns out to be an old shovel, and he starts using it excessively, becoming a nuisance to the town more than usual. That's all there is to it. Next. I love seeing Mr. T and the late Richard Simmons in T is for Trouble, but Double Vision is one episode where I have to scratch my head. So Johnny is shopping with Bunny and ends up accidentally following a woman home that looks identical to his mama and confuses her for Bunny, and the woman in turn confuses Johnny as a grocery store employee service. Now, Johnny is an idiot, I get that, but I don't know why this woman and her son just goes along with having this strange man in their house. Johnny and the son even mistakenly think they're brothers. This is another one you could probably skip. The hunk at the end of this cartoon and its sister episode is one I definitely remember recording on VHS the night it aired. It's a very funny setup of the Sesame Street book, The Monster at the end of this book. We do get a little bit of Johnny's backstory in Time of My Life and how he became who he is. It's much more believable than Carl bullying him in high school. Run Johnny Run has Johnny trying to make it to a date, an obvious parody of the 1998 film Run Lola Run. Wilderness Protection Program is another LOL random episode, but it really does work and actually hilarious, kind of reminiscent of season 1 classics like My Date with an Antelope or Wolf in Chick's Clothing. Here we are introduced to Becky the Moose, who's become a fan favorite for, obvious reasons. Page Right Out of History is one of the last major crossovers with classic Hanna-Barbera characters. In the distant past, Fred Flintstone saves a caveman Johnny, who becomes Fred's servant. I of course love the Flintstones, but they are very underutilized here. Personally, I think they have much better outings during this decade. This was notably the last Flintstones media where John Stevenson voiced Mr. Slate until his retirement and subsequent death, where his successor would be John O'Hurley of all people, and Flintstones WWE Stone Age SmackDown. Some episodes did spoof whatever was in the pop culture zeitgeist in the time, like Adam West's Datorama spoofing Blind Date, and Johnny Makeover being a send-up of Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. The last episode, Back on Shaq, has Johnny being a good luck charm for Shaquille O'Neal, and he helps Shaq win a game against Seth Green and his good luck charm, Huckleberry Hound, which is pretty funny. This is another one where the weird and randomness works. At one point they reference You Can Do It from The Waterboy, which makes it the second episode of this season to do so. Nothing too important, I just thought it was funny to mention. And that was it. On August 2004, Johnny Bravo ended his run on CN. Aside from occasional airings on a Cartoon Show and the Top 5, Johnny would be seen in several CN City bumpers and would appear alongside Bunny, Susie, and Carl in a Cartoon Network racing game for PlayStation 2. Reruns were gone by the late 2000s, though it returned briefly in 2009 in a marathon with Johnny Test, which I remember thinking, well, I definitely want to see one of those shows. All in all, Johnny Bravo's 4th season is the weakest of the series. But even if there was some more misses than hits, I think it's still great the creator actually got to do something with his show again, with characters he created. No matter how I feel, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Also, the characters are still likable, and the voice acting is still phenomenal. I'm really happy they kept Jeff Bennett as Johnny through the whole series because he's an integral part of why this show works, and I can't imagine Johnny voiced by anyone else. Like I mentioned in another video, I really hate how most modern audiences misunderstood the series and think it's problematic, but if I go on that tangent, I'll never stop, so I apologize. I guess it really did annoy me that CNN at one point just went along with it and acted like they were ashamed. They really didn't acknowledge it during its 30th anniversary, and it's not available on HBO Max. It seems like that's changing a little bit, seeing how reruns were added to Checker Pass this year. I really hope CN wisens up and reminds themselves that Johnny Bravo is an important part of CN's history and should be treated as such. Like a lot of the really good CN shows, the character and the series have stood the test of time, and Johnny has become a cultural icon, with parodies and spoofs, not to mention TikTokers and cosplayers paying tribute, so it's not like he's totally forgotten. Van is currently a lecturer in California State University, and for Halloween 2023, most of his students dressed up as Johnny Bravo. That's really cool. Johnny will always have a place in my heart. Thank you, Van Partible, for creating this iconic series and his equally iconic character. Until next time, I'm 47 Cartoon Guy, and I gotta fly.
Yeah, whatever.